Hi, you're listening to the ASC Podcast. ASC is a private therapy service specialising in working with young people and their families. The Ask It Podcast encourages talking about talking, facilitates your own inner wisdom, and rather than providing answers, considers good questions. Today's Ask It question is: how do we move from resentment towards acceptance? There's a quote variously attributed to Nelson Mandela, Alan Brandt, and Malachi McCourt, which is this: being resentful, they say, is like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die. Resentment is born out of our ideas, our stories about how others are or should be, how life or the world is or should be, as though there were a rule written down somewhere that life or the other has gone against, and even further, that we are being deliberately denied what we are entitled to. The trouble is, those stories become ingrained in our minds over time, and we decide that they're true because they feel true, and so we don't stop to test them out to see if they're really justified. Instead, we take a path of least resistance and we resort to the blame game, either blaming life or the other for not coming up with the goods, or seeing them as perpetrators who are doing something to us, something unfair or unjust. But sadly, in that blaming, we end up fully ensconced in the victim position, and it seems to me this is a very disempowering place to put ourselves, because from that position of resentment, it feels as though the world or other people happen to us, and we have no agency, no power. And if we're starting out from this place, what behaviours do we then employ? For instance, are we passive-aggressive and prone to sulking or making snidey little digs, or playing the martyr? I certainly know that one well. And in those passive-aggressive sorts of behaviours, I wonder what we're trying to achieve. Are we hoping that the other will somehow guess or know that we're annoyed and what we're annoyed about? We assume that they should know why we're upset. We assume it should be obvious. But actually, this is a very indirect and unclear way of communicating, and it isn't very effective at getting our needs met. And then there's the other end of the spectrum. Do we moan continuously as though we're stuck on rinse, repeat, telling our stories to absolutely anyone who will listen, saying it over and over and over again, sometimes for years, becoming increasingly angry and full of rage because with every telling of the story, that sense of injustice is compounded even further, but still nothing ever gets resolved? And what if our behaviours become even more extreme? The anger builds up to such an intensity that we find ourselves metering out our rage on someone or something that has no connection at all to the original frustration. For example, letting it rip in a road rage incident or kicking the proverbial cat. Harbouring resentment and bitterness like that poison eats us up from the inside and causes great suffering and emotional pain, even manifesting in the body in physical symptoms. Our emotions begin turning into physical pain. There's an increasing amount of research done on the links between mind, mood and the physical body and well-being, and I wonder about the long-term impact of any intense emotion on our physical health. After all, we all know how our bodies respond to our mood, in the way that if we're stressed, then our bodies are tense. If we're nervous, then our tummies can feel like washing machines. And if we're happy and joyous, we feel like jumping up and down. We feel energetic, like bubbles going off. So I wonder what resentment feels like in the body, what kind of shape it might be, where it might